Hi, everybody, and good morning to you. I am Elise as Another Truth on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening to this audio only commentary. Today, for this video specifically, I will stick to my reaction to the Princess of Wales announcement about her health update. I will be as respectful as I can, as I would be for anybody else facing such health challenges. When I first heard about the announcement, I had to hear about the announcement. I had been waiting for it. I had hoped to see the announcement directly. So my reaction is sort of, she was diagnosed with cancer, and then I saw her announcement. When I first saw and read about, well, I can't say that I read about it or I saw it. I just saw headlines that the princess was diagnosed with cancer. And I will be honest with you, I did feel sadness. And there are a lot of reasons why. But I was also not surprised because of the severity of the abdominal surgery. Any abdominal surgery is serious. Things can be found in surgery or after biopsies are performed. I have had my own biopsies done after surgery just to rule out anything else. And I understand the waiting period, how scary that can be. Sometimes it's just a matter of, we're going to biopsy this, anything that they take out to ensure that there aren't any other issues. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself. So when I saw her announcement, now I understand, with the background and the sunlight and the ray of hope and regeneration and spring, I've felt like this was probably an opportunity for her to address her hope of recovery for the future. And I think overall, from what I listened from her, there seems to be this trepidation, but at the same time, I think that her plan is to take the treatment responsibly as a means to ensure that future problems won't arise again, or matters won't get worse. Things won't get worse. Now, when I looked at her, I didn't look at her whole frame. I looked at her face because I wanted to follow what she's saying. Now, her voice, I've heard her speak before, and there were moments when she spoke about her children and her hopes for a better prognosis or for a good prognosis, because she used the word hope. Her voice seems shaken. And anybody who has had abdominal surgery um, and then have certain symptoms. For I'm sure that any human being would have gone through this, that sometimes some things happen abruptly, and then sometimes people reflect, I hadn't been feeling good for a long time. I had these weird things going on. It was passed off as stress, whatever. I'm sure that she's been sick for quite some time, not feeling well. I'm not saying she was sick with her revealed diagnosis for the whole time. I think that she probably felt unwell. And I mean, that's just part of human nature. When you're not feeling well, you're going to feel symptoms. Sometimes not all ab- abdominal issues, like, well, all right, when I had abdominal surgery, um you know, my nurses and doctors were honest with me in a way that wouldn't cause me panic. And they say sometimes there aren't always um, symptoms of that. Of course, I was experiencing symptoms because I was having extreme attacks of pain. So, of course, they had to do testing to test the bile ducts. They had to examine the bile ducts and everything to ensure there weren't any signs of cancer. And with all the testing and everything, they did perform a biopsy after. And to be honest with you, um, I wasn't exactly worried about it because I thought that they had taken care of it. I mean, to me, it was just protocol given my own health history and family history, and that they went the extra mile. So I can understand why maybe that this cancer diagnosis became a shock, because initially nothing looked suspicious, and it was probably they probably just wanted to test it to ensure, especially if there's a mass or if there's been certain symptoms for a long time. It's important, and I'm glad that it was done, and that wherever she is on that cancer timeline, on that time, the timeline of health and recovery, whatever stage she's in, that she will get this treatment to give herself a fighting chance. But I do also see a very sick woman. She's not sickly. I'm just saying that she looks exhausted. Of course she would be. Of course she would be. Of course she is worried about the future of her family, her future. Um, the initial diagnosis, yes, it must have been extremely shocking because they were told one thing, but they probably, I don't know if there was something else going on that caused it, or they just did a biopsy and testing um, on whatever tissue they could retrieve from whatever it is that they worked on. That is a little fuzzy to me, but it's not something I need to know at this point. Um, you know, any of us who've been through any type of abdominal surgery or any kind of gynecological issues, just or stomach issues or digestive, whatever. It everything's not always clear cut at first, and cancer is chaotic, and it's an evil, destructive, harrowing, unpredictable disease. So I can imagine her getting this news and then looking down a very narrow tunnel of her life and seeing probably, not just with shock. I mean, of course it's shocking, especially if you're told one thing and something else happens. I mean, that happens in healthcare. It's not, sadly, a lot of things have to be worked on. There are a lot of things that don't happen that should in healthcare. But with something like this, I can understand why there would be some concerns. So she's looking down her future and probably had all these questions in her mind and the anxiety around it. It doesn't matter. I mean, yes, she has a level of supreme privilege that a lot of us don't have, but it's still, cancer doesn't really care who it hangs on to. Um, and I can imagine as a mother, she thought, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with my children? Um, how are they going to emotionally adjust to this? How are they going to feel about this? And I don't know if I mean, she's in this for the long haul because um, I'm not sure what her prognosis is. I'm not sure about any of those things. I'm not privy to it, but I'm just saying where she's going with it and what she is thinking. But I can see that level of stress and sadness. That's something you can't fake. Okay. And there's just something about her. Um, you know, there are some signs that she's not feeling well. And I can see it. I can see it in her eyes. And I can hear it in her voice. And a lot of us have made that assumption. She's not faking this diagnosis. She's not lying about this or anything. People do this shit all the time. Now, given what the nonsense that's been going on with the public, um, with the palace's representation, a lot of things shouldn't be believed. But she's going through with it. I'm going to take her word for it, and I'm going to treat it as a fact. One of the few facts in this whole weird thing. But it makes sense. There are a lot of things about this that make sense. But again, I'm not in that family. I don't know what's being said. I don't know how relationships are played out. With this kind of diagnosis, a lot of things happen to people, their relationships, um, people's perspectives change, you know, what they value in life changes. And it makes sense to me that she has withdrawn for some time from public duties to work on this. And this must have a hell of an impact on her emotional and mental health, which can complicate things. So I understand. And I think that to have somebody with this level of publicity and public um, popularity and all of that, that she had made the announcement herself. And as much as she wanted to keep that private, but and I would consider this one of her last public duties for now. Okay, yes, she's raising an heir to the throne, but does it really matter at this point? What matters is health and well-being. And I think that is something that should be all of our focus on, our health and well-being, and what we actually fight for, what the meaning of our lives are. I'm not saying she represents that or she inspires that. I already learned that through my own course of therapy, self-realization, and going through my own stuff. I don't need representation from somebody who practically lives in a different world from me, but we share the fact that we share humanity and that We are all indeed fallible human beings. Um, I get a little disturbed when people deify people, and I guess it also goes back to my own history of putting people who don't deserve to be on pedestals put on pedestals, because it's unfair, it does a disservice to others. Now, I'm not saying that there are grave inequities in this world, and there is a lot of stuff going on in this world that deserves our attention and reverence and care. Um, and perhaps I failed to address a lot of that even in my own videos. But my mind is there. But right now, I wanted to, in this video, just wish um, the princess well in her recovery, that her experience is no better or no less than anybody else's experience. It's uniquely hers in her situation. And I respect the fact she'll bow out. Whatever the relationships are, there will be lots of discussions about it. And I'm not against people having opinions about those things. Okay? Um, she has stated herself she will be out of commission. That is a reasonable request, whatever is going on. A reasonable request. I would honor that from anybody, regardless of their background, who they are. And yeah, and that's it. The only thing that there are some things about this timeline that of which she speaks seems to be off, and there are things that I put in my head that I have in my head that I think I just have some opinions and thoughts about that, but it doesn't really matter because all they are opinions. They're not really like based on the fact. The only facts here is the fact that she is sick and that um, she's but she's well enough at this point to take cancer treatments. I understand that. I understand all of that. I understand the treatment that she's doing. I wouldn't say it's exactly preventative, um, but I think it's to um, treat what is going on, perhaps to prevent it from getting bigger. I would say it's more proactive than preventative because it's not really a medical term. There's another term for that type of thing, of what they're addressing. I don't think she's lying about it. I think she's using her words carefully, or she's instructed to use her words carefully. And she said she's early in the treatment. It doesn't mean that she said she's early in the cancer battle or anything like that. She's just starting this. There was something reported. Now I don't know. I don't know if this is fact but when William had to abruptly leave a public duty that he wouldn't normally do in his position, they said that was the moment, probably the time when they found out the diagnosis, and he probably wanted to go to her aid. Now, I'm not a fan of William. I know that he is Diana Spencer's son, Lady Diana Spencer's son. I understand that. And I say Lady Diana Spencer because I don't know, like she wasn't in that title for a long time, for a few years before she unexpectedly and unfortunately passed away. Um, but I'm really not a fan of royals and monarchies in general, but I don't live in that type of environment. I don't understand why some people believe in a monarchy as a system or as an institution, because people make it separate from the royals. I know a lot of Americans like the royals. They're not people I would look up to. I mean, if I can't look up to myself, why would I look up to them? We're worlds apart in many respects. But, um, and there are a lot of other issues that come in to all of this. I understand that. And that's something I'll probably talk about down the road, but it's not to disparage this woman who is sick. And I just want to say this may not be an appropriate defense of her, but I'm quite angry at the representatives of the palace for using her account and speaking as if it were her, and dumping the responsibility of the fake photos onto her. I think their method of damage control was trolling, it was disgusting, and it was downright scandalous. I think to use the words or to compel this sick woman to take any responsibility for those doctored photos, shame on them. Shame the fuck on them. Every last one of them responsible for this. They not only, they gaslit her and they gaslit the public. And the public, to some extent, have a right to know what's going on with their princess. Not in details, but to have some kind of update. I can understand where the concern is. People aren't trolling them. I think people don't always have their own boundaries, but there are legitimate concerns why they would want to see a proof of life of this princess. And there are many reasons for that, and I can respect that. Well, I should say I can understand that. I may not respect the ways in which people might overstep their boundaries in this, but I can understand why people would want to know. Um, and I think the palace, it wasn't just a blunder, it was intentionally deceptive and abusive. And I am reluctant. I mean, I wouldn't believe anything they said anyway, these kinds of announcements. By the time the announcements come out, they're filtered through the media and through public, and they're misinterpreted and things like that. But I wouldn't trust anything else they said at this point. Um, and I think that it was a major disservice to the princess and her credibility, regardless of what you think about her. Believe me, I have my own opinions about some things. But as far as this situation is concerned, I think um, that they hid the truth away. And the other side of it, it could have been done as a means of mercy for her so she didn't have to make this revelation. But I do think it was incumbent upon her to make this type of announcement given her position. It's an extension of her royal duties. She didn't have to tell us everything. There were certain words that were used to kind of get around things, to protect her own privacy. Listen, I understand. Okay. Um, but I don't appreciate her situation. I don't appreciate her being gaslit. Women are gaslit in general for their health care based on their race, their income, their age, and everything is chalked up to anxiety and this and that. There are a lot of problems. This was a piss poor example to set, and people should be furious about that, and they are. So I don't consider this an indictment on Princess Catherine's character. I think she was maligned in this, and it's just typical. It's just typical. Um, a shared experience, um, an understanding of what that entails. And I don't think that was done to help her in any way. Because even if she did make that announcement that she had apologized, no, I don't think she was behind that at all. I don't think she was behind that at all. I don't think that it was anything orchestrated by the Sussexes. No, no. I just think that the palace, the representatives, in their usual disgraceful way of handling things, really hurt the Princess of Wales in this situation, injured a vulnerable, medically compromised woman. And I think it's just absolutely unfathomable. But those are my opinions. Those are my opinions. And I understand I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. But it is disgraceful behavior. And you would expect that an institution propped up by the notion of integrity and stability, and we know that this entire family does not carry out those values. I'm not saying that's Princess Catherine at all. So who knows what's going to happen moving forward, but I do sincerely wish Princess Catherine well, and that her treatments help her beating this cancer, getting rid of these cancer cells, and that her health continues to improve, and that her prognosis, whatever that might be, improves. I will close this video now. Thank you so much for listening to me. I do appreciate it. All of my best to all of you. Bye.